You guys asked for it, and now we're here. This is part 1 of an interview I had with Vague. Enjoy! For those who aren't aware of who you are, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So like you mentioned, for those that don't know who I am, I'm actually a competitive player and both a content creator for obviously Call of Duty Mobile. Now, I actually started a while ago, back when the first beta came out, which was the Australian beta. And since then, I've been doing, I wouldn't say the best at it. Well, my startup on this game wasn't really the best. I was actually known as one of the worst players in competitive, but obviously we'll talk about that more when we go into the interview, you know?
In the previous interview, Image mentioned that Vague put in a lot of hours into mastering playing on the phone, coming from an iPad. So I asked what difficulties he encountered in making the jump.
Going from an iPad to a phone is a huge switch, not only because of the size of the device. You know, an iPad is like basically 2 hands, and then when you get a phone, or like any kind of phone in general, it's basically fitting your whole hand around it. And just that thought process, like, you know, knowing how you're gonna move your HUD and how you're gonna like adjust your play style and everything with how you play, like as in like putting your elbows on your table or like lying down your back, it was a huge I guess problem with me, because I didn't know how I could feel comfortable while playing, which is the first aspect. And the second aspect obviously is, I would say, the whole ego part of it. You know, coming from an iPad kind of thing, when I was really good on an iPad, and then going to phone and just getting completely, like, I guess, dogged on, was a huge problem for me. Because obviously when I switch, I had the whole mindset of, okay, like the moment I switch, I'm gonna be really good on phone. I'm gonna be like, you know, beating everyone. And when, you know, when I made the first switch, that wasn't the case, and I guess that kind of demoralized me a bit, because you know, I was like, oh crap, like I'm not the best anymore. Well, not best, but I'm not that great anymore. I'm getting, like, you know, losing so many easy gunfights that I should have won, and it was just a whole mess to begin with, you know?
I asked Vague what were the things he focused on mastering playing on the phone in order to overcome the difficulties he faced.
Well, in the beginning, obviously, I didn't really focus on everything at once. Whenever I did talk to a bunch of people who, you know, were helping me on phone, one of them was actually Tectonic. You obviously know him, and a bunch of other people probably do know him. He was actually the MVP for the 2020 Champs event, and actually is known as one of the best players right now. And he actually told me to not really go into everything too fast, maybe just focus on one aspect of the game, and then you focus on the next. So obviously the first one that I focused on was getting my sensitivity, because if you don't have the right sensitivity, then everything else goes to shit. Now with my sensitivity, when I did focus on getting this, I actually started playing around a lot of pubs and just ranks in general. Mainly rank, not really pubs, because pubs is filled with bots. But you know, I did a bunch of stuff. And then obviously when I was on iPad, I actually used this thing called finger sleeves, which are a huge help with me, because I do use low sensitivity and I've been using them for a while now. Then the second aspect that I focused on was obviously the gun skill department by itself, which means getting the kills for both short, mid, and long range, and then knowing how to do movement with that, then combine both movement and gun skill. And once you master that, then you focus on every other side aspect that the game kind of provides you or wants you to do when you're trying to become a pro player.
Do you use finger sleeves? I asked Vague about the necessity and if he recommends getting it if you're trying to be a pro player.
Well, me personally, I would say it's more of a preference. Now, I obviously don't really sweat too much on my fingers, nor do I have rough fingers, but I found that using finger sleeves kind of helps with consistency. Let's say, for example, you just wake up and you're just really tired and you want to play. Like, obviously, your fingers aren't going to be at the best shape, and when you try to do like some spray transfers and some flicks, it won't be the same feeling compared to you playing it later in the afternoon when your fingers are smooth. And just, I guess it's the muscle memory kind of thing, and finger sleeves kind of make everything consistent and feel the same, you know?
I also asked him how many fingers you should try to use when playing COD Mobile. Let's say a new player is watching this very video right now. How many fingers would you recommend to start with?
Alright, so when it comes to COD Mobile, I would say the go-to thing is obviously using claw. And if you guys don't know what claw is basically using 4 fingers, basically 2 thumbs and 2 of your index fingers on both your left and right hand. And the reason for this is because not only is it the best in terms of being the most comfortable, but using claw also helps with other games for when you transition, because obviously with the future games that are coming out like Valorant, Apex, and such, you're going to be wanting to use more fingers because there's going to be more buttons that you have to utilize. And you know, having just that mindset and that muscle memory of knowing how to use claw is just a really great thing going into like different games and such, you know?
Great things take time, so I asked how much time it took Vague to gain confidence and get good on the phone.
Alright, so when I first switched to phone, this was when gaming phones weren't a thing, by the way, but this is when everyone was still using an iPhone and no gaming phones were involved. And I would say it took me a good 3 to 4 months for me to get good on the phone. And within those 3 to 4 months, obviously I had my periods where like I was completely inconsistent. And then at some points I was even like really demoralized, like I mentioned before. So to get used to the phone, it was 3 to 4 months. And when I started getting good at it, everyone started buying these gaming phones. And then once the gaming phones appeared, I guess I ended up getting one. Obviously, it was the Red Magic 5G. And since I've gotten that, it was an absolute, like, I guess, blast. I started doing even better. I'm not saying you need a gaming phone to get good at the game or go competitive, but that is what everyone's been running. And obviously, it has its advantages, not so much disadvantages, but let's say you were an iPhone player going up against a gaming phone. Obviously, the gaming phone would win because of the higher FPS. And the higher FPS you have, the faster reacting time you have because it registers.
And the touch sampling rate, right?
Yes, correct. There's little to no input delay compared to an iPhone, you know what I mean?
Finally, I asked him a controversial question. Picture this. COD Mobile came out and said there's gonna be no competitive scene for the foreseeable future. Would Vague come back to playing on iPad? Here's what he had to say.
I've actually have been asked this question a lot of times actually. It's kind of a 50-50 thing with me because obviously people want to see change. And I think almost every single content creator right now is only like straight up iPad only, besides I would say Joker or Jokester, whatever you guys call him. Yeah, and I feel like people would want to see some change, not the usual, I guess, iPad thing, because obviously not that many people can't afford a big tablet, and they'd want to see like iPhone gameplay or like phone gameplay itself, since that's more of the affordable choice. And seeing someone like your content creator or someone that you look up to using the same sort of device that you're using kind of gives them that confidence or that jump to like play the game more and actually get better, because they say like, oh, my favorite content creator is playing on a phone, maybe I can do this too since I play around the same phone as he does. But let's say I did switch to iPad, it would be not only boring but really easy. I kind of think the skill gap between iPad and phone isn't really, I guess, that big, because obviously someone can switch to an iPad and get far better at it really fast compared to you switching from a iPad to phone. And I'm speaking from experience because I've, you know, played around with both, and me personally, I found it way harder to go from iPad to phone than phone to iPad. I didn't even answer your question. I would stick with phone. Sorry, I didn't even answer your question. Stick to phone. There you go. My bad.
What about you? If you had a choice, would you play iPad or on phone? Let me know down in the comments below. Special thanks to Vague. Make sure you check out his channel, link in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again for part 2 coming out this Sunday.